talk about how being a missionary to this Western culture, you actually bring in Newbegin. And as we said before, I mean, Newbegin has been someone that we have looked to and emulated in many different respects. And he talks about a missionary encounter, which is what our ministry is all about. And he has several different pieces in his recipe for a missionary encounter that you brought in a few of them: a broadened sense of the gospel, much like C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity, kind of a broad view of it; the recognition that culture isn't really neutral as we think it is, or there's no such thing as neutral reasoning within a culture; and the understanding of vocation is entirely lived response to the call of God, or his idea of making sure the laity brought the gospel into their public lives. What made you focus on those specifically that we needed to understand? I mean, you've done an excellent job. You made him understandable and translatable to the everyday person, which I think is very difficult to do, but you've done it marvelously. Why focus on those pieces specifically?
Yeah, well, let me just focus at least on one, the culture piece. This is, I think, one of the hardest things about being missionaries to our culture is that people still don't feel like this is a missionary moment, or this is my job, or somehow that culture is neutral. And for instance, religions or religious perspectives are not, right? They're particular. And that's actually not true in the least bit, right? Giving people a vision for their communities, the media they consume, as well as their workplaces. This is contested territory, you could say, with many different gods, and you could say worldviews or ultimate values. You could also say idols. That is, to Newbegin's point, maybe a little bit more like a Hindu culture with many gods rather than a secular space with no gods. I actually think that has been very important insight, is to say, I know you're thinking I'm just doing my business, or I'm doing work over here, I'm working in healthcare, and that's just sort of neutral, and then I do my religious things over here. But it's a very Acts 17 world out there. There are many gods that are being worshipped constantly. And I think getting people a sort of eyes to see that, I think is really, really important. And then it brings in all sorts of other things to saying, well, what are the values in my company, right? Or my school? What do I believe? What can I get behind? What should I not get behind? What does it mean for me to be wise about the type of language I use in a missionary encounter, right? Language that may make sense in the church context, but we have to be very thoughtful. One of my book chapters is about the vocation of translation, of continually translating between Christian doctrine. And if you're working in a marketing department at a cable TV company, right, you have to think about their language and what they're talking about and translating it to that right there. So all that to step back, I do think we have to give a vision for the world is filled with many gods, as it were, is more of an Old Testament world than sort of, I'd say, a 21st century. There is no kind of God there. And in that context, then all of a sudden, the Christians aren't the weird ones awkwardly bringing their faith to work. We all are bringing our faith to work.